Hello YouTube, my name is Isabella and today we're going to be discussing the books I read in June. So June was a bit of a shit show in terms of just the sheer amount of me working and dealing with the public right now has been so stressful, and it's taken such a huge toll on my mental health. It's unreal. I'm honestly exhausted, and because I've been so tired and I've been actually prioritizing making videos, reading really slipped through the cracks this month. I did not want to pick up a book basically at all. I read, I think, 6 books total in June, which isn't like terrible, but I've been doing really well with reading recently, so it just kind of bummed me out. We're going to quickly discuss the 6 books I read this month. I'm filming this on June 30th, so there's one more day, but clearly I'm not going to finish another book by then. But in a few hours, I'm going to go get The Empire of Gold, which I'm so excited for. It's my most anticipated release of the year, so I'm holding on to that. I hope I love it. And that's mildly ironic because the first book I finished in June was The Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty, the second book in the Daevabad trilogy. This was a reread for me. I reread it on audio because I wanted to finally put out my Kingdom of Copper review, which I did, and I will have linked on the screen. It's mostly spoiler filled, and I talk about some Empire of Gold thoughts and maybe theories. I love this series. I love how political and complex it gets. Every time you think there's an answer to something, so many more problems come up. The characters are so great, and the positions they are put in is so difficult. I love the world. I love the magic. Obviously gave this 5 stars. Check out my reviews for both the first and second book if you want. I'm going to try and vlog Empire of Gold, my thoughts reading that, so we'll see. But I love this series. It's an all-time favorite series. I can't say that because I haven't read the last book yet, but I think it will be. The next book I read was Axios End by Lindsay Ellis. This is the first arc I've ever been approved for on NetGalley, which was pretty exciting, and thanks to NetGalley for approving me. I have a full spoiler-free review that is set to come out in about a week's time of me filming this. It's supposed to come out July 7th. It's already filmed, edited, and uploaded. This is a first contact alternate history story set in 2007, and it follows this girl named Cora. She gets unwillingly roped in to be the interpreter for an alien species, and the first time an alien species has ever deigned to contact and communicate with the United States. And it's a very introspective, quieter take on the first contact with aliens. It's not like a big bang bang shoot. It definitely focuses on Cora and our alien character and their relationship, and sort of coming together and bridging the divide that 2 different species has. I love the exploration into morality. This does fall into some of the pitfalls of a debut, a little info dumpy in the beginning, and our main character lacks a bit of agency in the beginning, but those things do, I think, get a lot better as we go on. There is a lot to chew on and consider with this book, and even after I'd finished it a week later, I was still thinking on some of the implications that had happened for this book. I truly did enjoy it. There's a lot of interesting stuff going in there, and I gave it 4 stars. The next book I picked up on a whim, and that is You Should See Me in a Crowd by Leah Johnson. This is a fluffy young adult contemporary story that focuses on a girl named Liz. Liz is a queer Black girl from Indiana. She is really set to go to this elite school to play in the orchestra, but some of her financial aid falls through, and her school actually has this huge prom season, and the person who becomes prom queen actually gets a grant of $10,000, which would make up the difference for Liz to go to her dream school. So she decides to run for prom queen and starts to fall for one of her competition members, a new girl at school, and there's a lot wrapped up into this story, but it's just a beautiful, heartwarming, lovely, joyful time. It hits that really good balance between light and fluffy and regular teenage things, plus some of the darker elements of life. I would give a content warning for a public outing and grief of a parent who has died. There's also some other things to do with illness and sickness, because her brother has disease in which I'm forgetting at this point in time. Sorry. I really liked the discussion and element of friendship in here, because this actually takes on and tackles a bit of a toxic friendship or a very flawed friend. Seeing Liz navigate that, I appreciated, and I think it was very realistic, and I think it's something that needs to be featured more in contemporary stories. I really liked the relationship and how just happy it was. It was truly just a joy, and I liked the maturity behind it. I also loved all of the band things in here, because I was that band nerd in high school and I loved seeing that. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. It's a very happy, joyful tale, and I highly suggest you pick it up. The next book I completed was Scavenge the Stars by Tara Sim. I have some mixed feelings on this. It is a Count of Monte Cristo gender bent retelling. It's a fantasy story, but doesn't have like a lot of fantastical elements. A lot of people are saying this should be sci-fi, which is wrong. This is fantasy. Just doesn't have magic in it. I overall just kind of feel a bit meh about this story. There's not a lot that sticks out to me after I completed it. I did read it very quickly. It was incredibly easy to get through. Our 2 main characters I liked enough, although I do appreciate their plights and the difficulties of the situations they've been put in, and I did sympathize a lot with Amaya because she did have a really, really rough upbringing. I loved the casual queerness that was just all within this story. It's just, the story is just queer, and I really loved how Tara Sim brought different elements of that in, just like into the world, into all of our characters. I think my biggest issue was the plot, and I think the revenge quest part kind of falls flat. I did like some of the twists at the end, but overall just going through the story and how they were going about the revenge just bored me. Wasn't very exciting. But overall, I gave this like 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was okay, but it just doesn't stick out to me, and I think this could have used a bit more development, especially in the plot. The brightest spot in June was when I read this for the Queer Blackathon, and that's Felix Ever After by Kason Calendar. This follows a black queer trans boy who has never been in love and fears that he has one marginalization too many, that he'll never be in love. And it follows him going through this art program, and one day at this school he is actually outed and dead named in public, and so Felix is determined to get revenge. And to get revenge, he's going to catfish the person he thinks dead named him, and then really complicated romantic feelings start to arise, and Felix has to navigate a really, really difficult situation that he's created. This story was beautiful. From start to finish, content to tone, Kason Calendar perfectly wrote this story. I think this is one of the best depictions of teenagehood, queer teenagehood that I've ever seen. It's so very casual and just present, which is wonderful. And Kason really focuses on the messiness that teenagers can be and the mistakes they make. And Felix is messy. His friend group is messy. They knew what they were doing. I also forgot to mention that even though Felix is trans, he actually starts to explore his gender identity again, and maybe what he thought he doesn't fully encapsulate who he is. Really appreciated. There's so much in this story packed into this book that isn't that long, that was just so powerful and wonderful. Felix as a main character was incredibly sympathetic and engaging, and you feel so much for him, and then you want to shake him because he's being ridiculous. This does feature some transphobia and obviously content warnings for like dead naming and public outing, and it's ultimately a story of joy. It's set during Pride, which was wonderful. I so missed Pride this month. Not that like things didn't happen, but not seeing like parades and all this stuff was actually a lot more of a bummer than I thought it would be. I loved this book. I could talk about it a lot, but my brain kind of hurts. So I gave this 5 stars. It was beautiful. It's a favorite of the year. I loved it. And the final thing I read, I kind of cheated. I was reading kind of something else, but it was 50 pages in and didn't read for like a week and a half. I read The Gigantic Beard That Was Evil by Stephen Collins. This is a graphic novel that basically takes on xenophobia and fear of the other or the unknown. It's set in this place called Here, where everything is very orderly and tidy and everyone goes about their routine as normal. And then our main character starts growing this unruly, unkempt beard that is uncontrollable, and the ramifications of just a beard growing in this town essentially just like fuck shit up in the town called Here. And this was really, really interesting. I really appreciated the tone at the beginning. It's kind of got a menacing and fearful tone woven through like the town in here, and how the town is so happy to just conform. And I think there is so much that can be unpacked in here. I also really liked the way that this was written, because there's an element sort of poetry and a repetitive nature in the few bits of writing that you get on the graphic novel that really helped the flow of the story. I also really liked the pictures and the way that this was drawn. I read it so quickly. It is a graphic novel, but I was flying through it, and it's the first time in a long time that I've wanted to be reading and find out what was going to happen. I think as a graphic work, this is incredibly successful. The messaging and the story comes across very clearly. The ending I was a little confused on, like the very end. I didn't entirely know what last revelation meant for the overall story, but whatever. I gave this 4 stars. It was really unique, really interesting. So these are all the books that I read in June. Here's hoping July is better. I'm hoping that I'm getting out of this funk and fog in my brain. I'm hoping. But let me know your favorite book that you read in June was. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this video is short. I swear if this video isn't short, I'm gonna lose my mind. I only read 6 books. There's no way this video should be over 10 minutes long. Please, for the love of God. But thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you again very soon. Goodbye. Bye. Oh my God.